Hi and welcome to my video tutorial You Too Can Sew. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a trumpet skirt. So a trumpet skirt is fitted, from the top on the hip area, and then it flares out as it comes, towards the base or the end of the skirt. So this is what a trumpet skirt looks like. I'm going to be making a 6-pieces trumpet skirt. Trumpet skirts, you can make it in, it can just be a front and a back panel. It can be just the front and the back. It can be in 4 pieces, like you can have one here, or you can be in 6 pieces or 8 pieces, or just depends on how many panels you want to make. So I'm going to be making 6 pieces because this is the most popular type of a trumpet skirt that we normally wear here. So I'm going to be making a 6 pieces trumpet skirt. So this is what it looks like. We're going to be cutting 1, 2, 3 in front, and at the back we're going to be cutting 1, 2, 3. Of course the back is going to have a zipper, and so it's going to allowance at the back. So it's the front and the back pretty much the same. The only difference is that the back of the skirt has zipper somewhere here. So this is the front part of the skirt that we're going to be making today. So the measurements we need for this skirt, we need a waist measurement. I'm going to be using 32. We need your hip measurement. I'm going to be using 40. The length of the skirt, I'm going to be using 43 inches. And then your waist to knee measurement, that's measuring from your waist down to your knee. That's from here to here. So this is where I mean waist to knee. Okay, so from your waist to knee measurement, it's 17 inches. That's what I'm going to be working with. So we're going to be working with this measurement, but first of all, before we start cutting our fabric, this is the fabric we're using for this tutorial. Before we start cutting, I would like to explain to you that number 1 and number 3 are exactly the same, and that's the same way behind is also the same thing. So number 1 and number 3 are exactly the same. Number 2 is also the same, with I don't know whatever number that or the back would be. But the difference is that the back has a zipper allowance. So I think maybe I should just draw a picture of the back and then we'll understand it better. Okay, so what I was trying to say is that the back, so this is the zipper allowance here. So I was trying to say this is number 1, 2, 3. So let's say 4 and 5 and 6. Okay, so 2 and 5 are also the same. Now the difference is that we have the zipper allowance here, and then so we have the zipper in the middle. So this makes this part, we just have to create a space for the zipper, and so we have to divide it. Okay, so that's the only difference. Now from here to here, we're going to be cutting this 4 pieces, this number 1, number 3, number 4, and number 6 at the same time, because they are the same. So this makes it a little more easy, makes it easier than cutting it. I don't want to cut, or I do not like to cut it separately, because I figured out that they are the same. So I'm just going to go into the cutting right away. So I have 3 yards of fabric. Now the quantity of your fabric depends on the volume you want, of the volume of your skirts that you desire. If you don't want it to be very big or too full, so you would be using like just multiply your hip measurement by 2. that would be fine. But if you want it to be very big, you can multiply by 3 or 4 or 5, or you can just do whatever you like with it. So it doesn't really matter, but then don't make it too small, because it's not going to create that trumpet shape that you actually want or you desire. So now we're going to fold the fabric. Always work on the wrong side of your fabric. So I'm going to be cutting out the middle, because the middle is the part that is not the same. So I'm going to cut out the middle first. We're going to cut out the middle first. That's the first piece we're going to cut out. Now, how do we get the middle, the measurement for the middle? we're going to be using our point to point, bust to bust, or bust separation measurements, just like we do for our darts, to determine, you know, the size of the front panel as the middle panel. So I'm going to be using, for me, my bust separation measurement is 8 inches, so I'm going to be working with 8 inches. Now this is on the fold, so definitely I'll divide 8 inches by 2. I'm going to get 4 inches, and I'm going to add 1 inch, so I'm going to be using 4.5. So it means that we're going to have half inches of seam allowance, you know. So I'm going to be using 4.5 inches. So I've measured 4.5 inches here. Now I'm just going to measure down to get our full length. Our full length is 43 inches. Now remember, we're using a band, so our band height will be 2 inches. I'm going to subtract 2 inches from 42 inches. Sorry, from 43 inches, I'm going to get 41 inches. Then I'm also going to add 2 inches for our hemming allowance, and I'm going to get 43 inches. So back to 43. So 43 inches is here. And I'm just going to give a line there, use my ruler. Okay, so now remember our waist to knee measurements. We're going to come down by 1 inch. I mean, it's always good to come down by 1 inch so that you don't work on the selvage. So we're going to come down 1 inch. Okay, so now I'm going to measure 17 inches, which is our waist to knee measurement. So this is 17 inches, and then I'm going to extend the line. Okay, so now we've measured here 4.5 inches. Then down here, I would like mine to be, you know, to have a lot of volume, you know, down. So I could actually say, okay, that is 4.5 inches, and then decide to use 9 inches here, you know. That's just to double that measurement. And then 4.5 will be 9, so I can use 9 inches here. But I want mine to be, you know, to have a lot of volume, so I'm going to just go ahead and make it about 12 or 13 inches here. So I'm just going to work with that. Now from here, 4.5 inches, I'm also going to measure 4.5 inches here, and then I'm going to extend that line. It's a straight line. Now from here, I'm also going to extend this line here. It's also a straight line. Okay, so this is it. Now, you know, you might just cut this out. This is fine. But if you want the front to give us like a lot of curve, you want it to be very fitted on you, you know, you just want that extra curve in front here, you can decide to come in by 1 inch here. You know, this is actually, you know, optional. It's just up to you. It might be you might decide to do this, or you might decide to leave it the way it is. So you might decide to come in, and then you can redraw your line if you want to do this, and then from here you can decide to just redraw it. It's totally up to you. It's optional. Okay, so now that we've gotten the middle, this is the middle panel. That is our number 2. This is very one here. So I'm going to cut it out straight away, because I'm going to use this one to cut out the back. Now there's a trick I normally use, and I can't use it for this particular fabric, because you can use it for every fabric, because this fabric has different color up, and then it has a different color down. So to save my fabric, I usually, you know, put it the other way. You know, so when I do this, you see that I get to save a lot of fabric here, you know. But I can't do this in this case because you can see that I have green here and I'm going to be having yellow, and I don't want to mix up, you know, the colors. I want all the colors to flow in the same direction, you know. So I don't want some to have yellow on top and then some to have green on at the bottom, you know. So you have to be careful when you're working with any fabric, you know. So you have to watch your fabric. That's very, very important. And then you have to watch the patterns, the way it flows, you know. If it's actually like a triangle and it's facing this way, you don't turn it the other way when you're making the middle or the center front, and you just scatter up your design. So you have to be careful when you're working with fabrics, you know. That's very, very, very important. So usually I like to save my fabric, so I would do this, you know, but I can't do this in this case because of the color. So now I'm going to fold this again, and sorry, it means we have to use more fabric when you're working with a fabric that is like mine. So we're coming down by 1 inch, don't forget, and we make sure that everything sits well properly. Okay, so I've just given, okay, so I'm going to just check. This is for our zipper allowance, so this is the extra here. So this is about 2 inches or 1.5 inches. Just all depends on you, and then we'll make sure that we have our 1 inch here. Okay, so I'm just going to cut this out. So I'm going to open up our fold for the back, the center back. I'm going to open it up. This is because of the zip that we're going to be inserting. Okay, so this is fine. So we're done with the center front and then the center back. So we're going to be working, on the sides. Now remember that I said that the 4 sides, the front has 2 other sides, like, you know, side seam, and then the back side, they are completely the same, you know. So we're going to be working with all 4 of them. We're going to be working on all 4 of them. Now, how are we going to know the measurement to work with? Remember that our waist measurement is 32 and our hip measurement is 40, and then when you divide 40 by 4, you're going to get 10 inches. So we're going to get 10 inches. So 10 inches for the front and 10 inches for the back. Now also remember that we took out 4 inches. This is our bust span measurement that I used to get this. We took out 4 inches for the center. So now when we subtract 4, we're going to be having for the hip, you know, which the hip was 10 inches for the front, and then we've taken out 4. So we're going to have 6 inches left. Now we're going to be working with 6 inches for the hip, and then we're going to be working with the waist was actually 32 inches, and then when we divide it by 4, when we divide, the waist was 32 inches, and then when we divide it by 4, we get 8 inches. So we've actually taken out 4 inches from the center front and the center back, and so we'll be left with 4 inches for the waist, and then we'll be left with 6 inches for the hip. I hope you understand what I mean. So we're going to be working with 4 inches for the waist and then 6 inches for the hip for our sides, because that's what we have left. So this is the fabric we have left. So I just folded this fabric into 4. So like I said, the quantity of fabric you're working with depends on how big or how small you want your skirt, the volume you want to achieve. So I've cut more for the center, and now for the sides I'm going to be working with what I have left. So please feel free to use more fabric. You can use 4 yards or whatever, depending on what you want to achieve. You need to use more fabric. Sorry. So don't forget I told you that we're going to be, our hip is good. We're going to be working with 6 inches for the hip and then 4 inches for the waist. You really need to be careful. You need to check your fabric if 4 of them sitting in properly. You say I have this one's a little bit short, so I'm just going to make sure that it's sitting in properly. So now we're going to come down by 1 inch, and we're just going to repeat the same process. So to make it easier, so we don't do all our calculations again, we're just going to place one of these we're going to place it here. Okay, so this is our waist to knee line. So I'm just going to use a ruler to extend that. Excuse me, and this is our length we're working with. So I'm just going to extend this. So yeah, take this out. So our hip now, we're left with 6 inches. Now, do not forget to add seam allowance to that 6 inches. I'm going to be adding 1 inch seam allowance. So that'll give us 7 inches. You can add more if you want to. So I'm going to be adding 1 inch seam allowance on the hip. So it's going to give us about 7 inches. I just want to see if this is going to take it. So definitely, you know. So I'm going to come out a little bit from the fold here. I'm going to come in by 2 inches. So I just came in 2 inches, you know. So it's actually, there's no standard measurement for this. You can, if you want the flit to be more and then you have more fabric, you can come in 3, 4 or 5 inches, you know, before imputing your measurement. So I'm just going to extend the line. Okay, so right here I'm going to input my waist measurement, which, you know, after we divided 32 by 4, we had 8 inches, and then we've subtracted the center front, which we've already cut out, which is 4 inches, and then we're left with 4 inches. Now I'm going to add the seam allowance, and I'm going to be adding 1 inch, so which is going to give us 5 inches. You can add 2 or whatever. So I'm going to add about 1 inch or 1.5 inches. It's just up to you. So let me add 1.5 inches. So 1.5 inches. So we're going to get 5.5 inches here, and then I'm just going to come down from the waist about 8 inches or 9 inches, depending on your measurements. All depends on you. From here, then I'm going to input our hip measurement, which was 40 inches, and then we divided by 4, we got 10 inches, and then we're taking off the center front, which we've cut already, which was 4 inches, and we're left with 6 inches. So I'm going to add the allowance. So I added 1.5 inches here. I'm just going to do the same. Okay, so which we have 6 inches here, and then when we add 1.5, we're going to have 7.5 inches here. So I'm just going to mark that here, and then here, down here, you can take off, you know. So this is 7.5 inches, so this is like straight. So you can decide to take off 2 inches from here, or you can decide to take 2.5 inches, depending on how curvy you are, you know. So it just all depends on you. When you're making a basic skirt, the same rule applies. I'm just going to use my curved ruler to get a curve from the hip, from the waist to the hip. And I'm just going to do the same here. So we're just going to take out 2 inches here. This is a knee line, so okay, now from here we're just going to use straight ruler to connect it to the bottom. Okay, and then I'm going to use a straight ruler as well. So as for this particular side, you know, you can also decide to come in 1 inch and then, you know, curve your or redraw your lines, but I'm just going to leave this here because we don't have a lot of fabric, so I'm just going to leave mine this way. I'm just going to connect this. Okay, so this is what we have here. Don't forget that I folded this fabric into 4, so I'm cutting the 4 sides at once. Okay, so if you cut this out, you'll see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's just see what it looks like. So this is number 1. So this is number 2, which is the middle panel. And this is number 3. So bye bye. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.